We set an all-time record for drug overdoses in 2020. Over 93,000 people died of drug overdoses. That was up 30%. When you look at the age of the average person who died of a drug overdose, it was decades younger than the people who died with COVID. And so I am curious, unfortunately, and I've been asking this question for a long time, so much focus on loss of life, and I understand that. But the most important thing about loss of life, everyone is going to die. I hate to share a negative story with you, but everyone out there is going to die, all right? What is truly tragic is not death. It is death from a relatively young person. A child's death is far more crushing to most people than someone dying over the age of 80. A college kid dying is far more crushing than someone dying in their 70s. Drug overdoses skyrocketed because of our unnecessary shutdowns and lockdowns. I think that's a big part of why drug overdoses skyrocketed, because it drove drug use and also counseling and support and friendships and family. It drove isolated individuals into even more of an isolation. 30% increase in drug overdoses. How close to total years lost were we from drug overdoses, almost in equaling years lost from COVID of life? Let me explain this. The average person dying of COVID is over 80 years old. Most people over 80 years old do not have decades and decades still to come of life. And so, if you die of a drug overdose at 25, you are losing 50 years of life, let's say. If you die with COVID at 82, you might be losing on average 1 year of life. So someone who is 25 dying of a drug overdose may well have the same number of lost years of life as 50 people who are dying with COVID. And this is a story that it's like nobody was willing to talk about. All death is not created equally. Younger people dying is far more difficult and far more tragic than older people dying. And most people who are dying of drug overdoses are younger, decades younger, than the people who are dying with COVID. And as a result, this is, I believe, a story that should get far more attention than it does. And it speaks to why our decisions to lock down were so fundamentally wrong. You look at what happened in New York, you look at what happened in California, they didn't have a safer experience than Texas or Florida when it came to the data associated with the number of people that were dying of COVID. Lockdowns protected no one and made no sense. And unfortunately, they cost us a lot, an all-time high, a 30% increase in the number of drug overdoses.